It's 8 o'clock. This is Northern Light for Monday, June 24th. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski. So glad you could join us. About 25 Vietnam veterans from the North Country flew to the nation's capital on Saturday to visit the Long Black Vietnam War Memorial.
Many of those veterans, they avoid that wall. They haven't wanted to go just because they're just, I don't want to say they're scared of it, but they know what's going to happen when they get there. The good part is many of them walk out of that area feeling great relief.
More on the latest North Country honor flight coming up. And Governor Hochul has signed into law a measure to ban social media companies from sending notifications to kids overnight, but it hasn't translated to her approval ratings among voters. Also, we'll stop by Saranac Lake's Hootenanny, a Monday night gathering of musicians of all kinds.
Yeah, this is a spot. There's no genre and no instrument that isn't welcome at the Hoot. We love to see the diversity of acts that come out. It's a challenge, but one that I'm excited to take on, and that's been really fun to figure out as we go.
All that's coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us. Support for Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio comes from the Seagull Festival in Schroon Lake, presenting live performances of Lerner and Lowe's musical Brigadoon, July 3rd through the 6th. Details and tickets at seagullfestival.org. And by Apothecary Chocolates, making gourmet chocolates by hand from all natural herbs, botanicals, and tree syrups. apothecarychocolates.com. This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has signed legislation into law that will regulate how children use social media. The New York Public News Network's Karen DeWitt reports.
Hochul championed the legislation, making it her number one priority in the final days of the legislative session.
Today, we save our children. We have heard their cries for help, reminding us as adults that we have a moral responsibility to protect young New Yorkers from harm.
The measures make it illegal for big tech companies to use algorithms on the social media feeds of children under the age of 18 and prohibit social media companies from overnight push notifications unless parents consent to the practice. The second law bans the companies from collecting and selling children's personal data without parental permission. Studies have shown that increased use of social media among young people is linked to higher incidence of depression, anxiety, and even suicide. Meanwhile, a new poll by Siena College finds that New Yorkers overwhelmingly agree with the new laws. But Siena pollster Steve Greenberg says those views do not translate into increased support for Hochul among potential voters.
They're the worst they've ever been. Right now, 38% of voters view Kathy Hochul favorably. 49% view her unfavorably, underwater by 11 points. It's the largest she's ever been underwater since she's been governor.
Greenberg says just 44% approve of the job that Hochul is doing in office, compared to 50% who don't. Those scores are also the lowest she's had since becoming governor nearly 3 years ago. Greenberg says independents are shifting away from Democrats and leaning more toward Republicans. And he says there's a general sense of unease and dissatisfaction on other issues like crime, the influx of migrants into the state, inflation, and the future of democracy. And he says more than half of New Yorkers think the state and the country are headed in the wrong direction. That translates into lack of confidence in the person who's leading the state.
They're concerned about a lot of issues, but right now, more than anything, they're cranky, and they don't feel that their needs are being addressed.
Democratic President Joe Biden in blue New York is leading his Republican opponent, former President Donald Trump, by just 8 points. Biden won against Trump in New York by over 20 points 4 years ago. Hochul's opponents pounced on the numbers. The New York Conservative Party said in a statement that the poll shows Hochul is a failed governor and that change needs to be made at the White House. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt for the New York Public News Network.
A challenger to Representative Elise Stefanik may not make it onto the ballot this November. Earlier this month, Scott Lewis's petition to run for the state's 21st congressional district was deemed insufficient by state officials. Amy Feiereisel has more.
34-year-old Scott Lewis, an independent, filed his ballot petition with the state in May. To get his name on ballots alongside Republican incumbent Elise Stefanik and Democratic challenger Paula Collins, Lewis needed 3,500 signatures. Lewis says he turned in over 3,800. The State Board of Elections says they counted just under 3,500 valid signatures. That's because some sheets were unnumbered and there were errors with witness statements. That's the part where a witness swears they saw each voter sign. A Board of Elections official told the Adirondack Daily Enterprise that not claiming signatures correctly is a fatal flaw to a petition. Lewis says he was not given a designated 3-day period in which to fix technical violations. Lewis has appealed the Board of Elections decision. A hearing is scheduled for this Friday, June 28th in Albany. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio.
Watertown will soon be the birthplace of more than 1 million baby chickens per week. The Watertown Daily Times reports that a Georgia-based company is opening a $20 million hatchery in the city's agricultural and business park. Chicks from the facility will either be used to lay more eggs or for meat, depending on their sex. A company official says the hatchery will create about 170 jobs. New York's Public Service Commission has fined 2 North Country power companies for failing to meet customer service standards last year. If companies are below a preset approval percentage, they have to pay money back to their customers. Liberty Utilities, regionally known as St. Lawrence Gas, was fined $39,000, and National Grid, regionally known as Niagara Mohawk, was fined over $1 million. It's one of the state's largest energy providers. Fines go towards customers' bills who currently pay the regular rate for their services. 3 other New York utility companies were also fined to the tune of more than $20 million. The Adirondack Regional Airport in Lake Clear is trying to figure out how to pay for renovations. Estimates are coming in over budget, and the question is who will pay for the difference. NCPR intern Zach Jaworski has more.
The Adirondack Regional Airport has wanted to modernize its terminal for years. Initial renovation estimates exceeded $16 million, but those plans were scrapped in favor of a simpler, cheaper design. The Adirondack Daily Enterprise reports that the renovations were supposed to be funded entirely by a 2022 State Department of Transportation grant. But that couldn't entirely cover the costs, and now about $200,000 will be needed from Harrietstown's Airport Reserve Funds. They're the municipality that owns the airport. That's caused divisions in the Harrietstown Town Council. One councilman was opposed to using reserve funds because he thought funding for the project would be covered entirely by the grant. Others felt that it was hard to ask the state for more grants when Harrietstown has more than $2 million in its reserve. Last week, the council voted to use the reserve funds if needed. They say Harrietstown is still applying for state and federal grants to try and cover the budget gap. It's unclear when construction would begin. For North Country Public Radio, I'm Zach Jaworski in Canton.
The Lake George winter attraction Winter Realms, which replaced ice castles last year, will not be returning this winter. Winter Realms was featured unmeltable elements like holiday light walks and a synthetic ice skating rink. It replaced the previous ice castles, which featured a giant castle built from ice. But due to warming temperatures, Ice Castle only opened for 22 days during its final year 2 winters ago. Brad Buellhorn, who managed both Lake George attractions for a larger company, told North Country Public Radio last year that Winter Realms could be the answer to consistently providing, quote, wintertainment.
the entire aim of this project, was to create an authentic winter experience that can be enjoyed whether it's 5 degrees outside or 50 degrees outside.
But the profits weren't the same. Ice Realms operated at a loss, prompting Buellhorn to pull out of Lake George for the coming winter season. Lake George has not announced future plans for a replacement winter attraction. And New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand wants to increase federal funding to research Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses. More than 16,000 cases of tick-related illnesses were reported across New York in 2022. Hundreds of those cases were in the North Country, according to CDC data. Gillibrand says a majority of military bases are located in states where exposure is high. She says this poses a threat to military readiness and national security.
As the influence of suburban development and climate change expand tick ranges and increase the risk of tick-borne illnesses, the threat to our families, our service members, and our community only grows.
Gillibrand says research and prevention efforts for tick-borne illnesses have been historically underfunded. Next year, Gillibrand will propose nearly $200 million to support research and programs that address Lyme disease. This is NCPR. You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. It's about 10 after 8. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski. So glad you could join us. Stick around. We'll hoot and holler at the Monday night Hootenanny at the Garagerie in Saranac Lake. It's coming up in just a few minutes right here on Northern Light, which is supported by the Village Mercantile in Saranac Lake, established in 2011 with a mission of community-fueled solutions. With essentials for home, camp, and gift-giving, villagemerc.com, anything but general. And by the Adirondack Experience, the museum on Blue Mountain Lake, hosting their Celebrate Akwesasne Artists event, Saturday, July 13th, with performances, demonstrations, and more. Event details at theadkx.org. Music now by the Phoenix Jazz Collective out of Potsdam. Over the weekend, 30 North Country veterans of Vietnam, Desert Storm, and the Cold War flew together to Washington, D.C. to visit the memorials to the wars they and their comrades served in. They're part of the North Country Honor Flight. Since 2013, the nonprofit has flown almost 900 North Country veterans to the Capitol at no cost to them. On Saturday, they started at Arlington National Cemetery to watch the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, then continued to the memorials to the U.S. Marine Corps, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Barry Finnegan is the director of the North Country Honor Flight, and he told me that for him, his involvement in the group is personal.
My parents, unfortunately, were both World War II veterans, but they never had the opportunity to go. And when I saw what Honor Flight was, I said, you know what? My parents can't go, but I can make sure everybody else's parents do. So I kind of made a promise to myself to do everything I could to get everybody down to see their memorials on an Honor Flight.
Wow. And, this weekend it's 3 Cold War veterans, 1 from Desert Storm, and 26 folks from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Can you tell us more about who these folks are?
We're sending 30 veterans each day that we fly, which is 4 times in a year. So each time it all depends on who's on the list to go. You know, they've got veterans that have been waiting to go. Unfortunately, those are the healthier, younger guys. The older guys go immediately, like the Korean and the World War II guys, which we have on our next flight. But this flight here was mostly all Vietnam guys and the two Cold War. They served between Korea and Vietnam, which puts them as Cold War. The one other guy actually joined during Vietnam. He could be considered a Vietnam vet, but he chooses to go down as a Desert Storm veteran. And that's what he's proud of most, so that's what he's going as.
When you're with the Vietnam veterans and they're in front of the wall, how have you seen them respond?
Oh, my gosh. Each one, you could tell what it means to them. And, of course, you know, many of those veterans, they avoid that wall. They haven't wanted to go just because they're just, I don't want to say they're scared of it, but they know what's going to happen when they get there. They've already run through it in their minds, and when somebody finally makes the decision, okay, it's my time to go, and they get to that wall, then everything comes flooding back. All the memories, all the people that they lost, and all the people that are on that wall that were in their units. Just incredible. You know, at that point, I back up. You need to give them a moment, and they'll gather themselves pretty soon. And the good part is many of them walk out of that area feeling great relief.
When you talk with the veterans who go, what has this meant to them to be a part of it?
Oh my gosh, it's a life-changing event for most of them. You just, you know, the stories they tell you, what they did, and they're so proud of their service, and a lot of times never had the opportunity to tell anybody that. And when they know what's coming up, and then when they finally see what happens, you know, many of them come back home and say, that was the best day of my life. And a statement like that doesn't get any better, right? It's that's just a huge, huge statement on what we're doing. And we've got a great group of volunteers putting this whole program together. They make everything happen seamlessly, and it's just a great program for an all-volunteer organization. That's the kicker. You know, there's no paid staff here. There's nobody on a payroll of any sort. Every dollar that we get in donations goes towards putting veterans on an airplane. That's it. Like I say, it's very rewarding. Sometimes I feel selfish. I wish people could hear and see the things that I get to see. It's really a privilege to be able to do this.
That was Barry Finnegan. The next North Country Honor Flight is scheduled for August 31st. And if you know a veteran who served in World War II, Korea, or Vietnam who'd be interested in participating, you can find a link to sign up at our website, ncpr.org. This is North Country Public Radio. You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Monica Sandreski. It's just about 20 after 8. Good morning. So glad you could join us. In just a minute, we'll have new music from Adirondack musician David Ruck. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note coming up at 8:42. But first, we've got to look at the weather forecast. At last check, it was 60 degrees in Messina, 59 in Lowville, 58 degrees in Newcomb, 67 degrees already in Plattsburgh, and 59 degrees in Saranac Lake. We can expect light rain and showers throughout the region today. Highs in the mid-upper 60s throughout the area. Overnight tonight, isolated showers are expected to continue, but only a 25% chance of that. Lows in the mid-50s to about 60 60 degrees tonight. Tomorrow, sunnier skies in the forecast with highs in the upper 70s to about 80 degrees. Then on Wednesday, a chance of thunderstorms with highs in the mid-70s expected and scattered rain possible on Thursday too. A little bit cooler out with highs in the upper 60s. One of the Adirondacks' newest music venues is offering the chance to check out local talent on Monday evenings. Since last November, the Garagerie has hosted the Saranac Lake Hootenanny, a weekly gathering of musicians. Hosted and produced by Charlie Reinertsen of Two Line Studio, musicians and listeners are welcome every Monday evening at the Garagerie from 6:30 until 10 for a night of featured artists and open mic performances. Before he retired, Todd Moe spoke with Reinertsen, who records, produces, and shares the music on social media. Charlie, who grew up in the Midwest, says as a musician, he wanted to create a space for local musicians and those new to the Adirondacks.
This place is kind of this combination of all the things that I love about all the places that I've lived. My wife and I have just really called this home, and we love it here, so.
Well, I've been playing out the options, drafting notes I never mail, laying crumbs I hope will lead you back along this trail. I don't want to tell you what you give is not enough. I may try withdrawing, but I know you catch my bluff. I travel miles and weeks to see you, double up and do it again. But I know it's not the same for you, my lost and lonely friend.
I've been really fortunate throughout my whole life to find and kind of fall into these musical communities, these events, whether they're public events or friends inviting musicians over to play music. Just different people in my life have created this amazing community around music. And when I moved up here, it was in the middle of the pandemic, so some of those events really weren't happening. But as we have started to come out of the pandemic and more live music is available, I started noticing that there aren't a lot of places for smaller acts to be able to perform in a stage setting. And a lot of amazing venues up here are also breweries and restaurants that are not quite the same as performing on a stage. And so we're trying to create the space for musicians to perform in a stage setting that they might not have access to otherwise. And then at the end of the week, I post the full-length recording of the performance. I've been producing the Hootenanny through my company, Two Line Studio, and donating those recordings for free. And so musicians can download the full length, trim it down to their section, and then post to all their channels. Because as a musician myself, I know that it's really, really hard to build this portfolio that's expected of you. You're supposed to have these great recordings and videos of what you're able to do so that you can book bigger and bigger acts.
So it sounds like it's kind of a combination performance space, recording studio, and then you also push out the finished product on social media.
Yeah, that's right. So it's this combined evening of featured artists who has about 45 minutes to be able to share their music, and then an open mic where we give 2 songs to each musician, and then we close it all down with what we're calling the slew line, which is this jam with either artists that we've selected ahead of time that maybe haven't played together before, or just opening it up to all the musicians who have been there that night to be able to come up and play together.
So I assume that in terms of the music that you're producing, it's everything from a cappella to fiddle, guitar, wind instruments?
That's right. Every week is a learning curve for me. You know, it's pretty amazing. We've had just about everything, and I'm in conversation with a few people who are going to extend the reach of what we've been doing so far. There's no genre and no instrument that isn't welcome at the Hoot. We love to see the diversity of acts that come out. it's a challenge, but one that I'm excited to take on, and that's been really fun to figure out as we go.
And if you're looking for something to do on a Monday night, not a Friday or Saturday, but a Monday night, then this is the place.
Yeah, this is a spot. That's the other neat thing about it is that not too many other things are going on, so we've gotten some good turnout. So looking forward to seeing you all down at the Hoot.
These dreams that I've been spinning wash like whiskey down the drain. Don't talk about our feelings, let alone when we're in pain. So we grab our fishing rods, push this boat out from the beach. We pretend that we're not chasing something just within our reach, and in our heads we're singing. I'd travel miles and weeks to see you. Double up and do it again. But I know it's not the same for you. First and truest friend. No, I know it's not the same for you. My first and truest friend. Thank you.
That was Charlie Reinertson of Two Line Studio talking with now retired host Todd Moe. Their conversation first aired in January. And head out and check out the Saranac Lake Hootenanny tonight at the Garagerie starting at 6:30. You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski. We've got a couple minutes left on the show. And before we go, we want to play a little bit of new music from David Ruck. He's known for teaching about the history of Adirondack folk songs and ballads. He's also part of a band based out of Buffalo called Oregon Fairchild. This is music from their new album Songs We Didn't Write, which dropped this month. This is their instrumental take on Harry Styles' song Canyon Moon. Canyon Moon by David Ruck and Oregon Fairchild from their new album, Songs We Didn't Write. That's just dropped this month. Lots of events going on throughout the region. Check out a special Pride event in Glens Falls this week. Cam Cardinale will be presenting on the history of Pride nationwide, as well as right here in New York State. Cam is the current president of Lower Adirondack Pride, which serves Warren, Washington, and northern Saratoga counties. This program is free, but registration is required. That's this Thursday at 7 o'clock at the Chapman Museum in Glens Falls. You can find out more from the Chapman. And check out the current exhibit at the Thousand Islands Arts Center in Clayton. It features the work of two artists. Becky Harblin is a pastel landscape artist who says she drew inspiration from Robert Frost's poem To Earthward, one of his few love poems. And also, painter Elizabeth Grader's work will also be on display. She was born in Ogdensburg and grew up in Cornwall. The exhibit includes her paintings of St. Margaret's Island in Hammond and portraits of her grandchildren. The exhibit opened earlier this month and runs through Saturday, July 6th, and there's a public reception coming up this Wednesday from 5 until 7 o'clock. That's it for the show. I'm Monica Sandreski. Be well.